My name is Bella Moretti, 32 years old, an interior designer living in Florence, Italy, a city that feels like it was built for beauty. My apartment sits above the cobblestone streets of Florence, with wide windows overlooking the Arno River, where the sunlight spills like gold every morning. For years my life moved with quiet rhythm. A small cup of espresso at dawn, sketches scattered on the kitchen table, and the sound of Lorenzo's laughter echoing from the next room. He was my husband, steady, patient, and full of that silent warmth only certain men carry. We built our life slowly, like restoring an old painting, layer by layer, color by color. And then, when Gabriel was born, our son, our miracle, everything felt complete. I named him after my childhood best friend, who died 3 years ago in a car accident. It was my way of keeping a fragment of that lost light alive. I thought the universe was kind. I thought love, family, and peace could coexist. But I was wrong. Sometimes storms don't start with thunder. They start with a whisper. A name spoken by the wrong person at the wrong time. For me, that name was Gabriel. And the person who turned it into a curse was my sister. Back then, as I stood by the window of our Florence apartment, watching the Arno shimmer under the late afternoon sun, I had no idea that the next few months would destroy everything I loved. I had no idea that the name I gave my son would become the battlefield that tore my family apart. If you're still listening, we want to sincerely thank you for spending your time with us. Truly means a lot. We'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments and let's see how far this message has reached. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I highly recommend doing it now so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. These aren't just ordinary stories, they're filled with meaningful life lessons that can inspire, teach, and stay with you long after the video ends. Hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. The evening of Gabriel's welcome party was meant to be a celebration. A small, intimate dinner at a restaurant by the Arno. The scent of roasted rosemary and sea salt filled the air. Candles flickered softly on every table, and the city outside glowed like honey. My mother sat at the far end, dabbing her eyes with a napkin as I spoke about why we had chosen the name Gabriel. "It's in memory of my dearest friend," I said, voice trembling slightly. "He was kind, gentle, and believed the world could be better than it is. I want my son to carry that spirit." People clapped softly, glasses of Prosecco raised. For a moment everything was perfect, until Sofia stood. Her chair screeched against the marble floor, cutting through the laughter. Her face was flushed red, eyes wide like someone trying to hold in a scream. "That's my name," she said, voice sharp as broken glass. "I was going to name my son Gabriel, after Gabriel Byrne. You knew that." I froze, unsure if she was joking. The table fell silent. "Sofia," I tried to reason, "you've said that since you were a teenager, but you don't have a child yet. It's just a name." She slammed her hand on the table. "Just a name? You stole my dream." Lorenzo stepped in, calm but firm. "Please, Sofia. This isn't the time." But she was already gone, storming out, muttering something that chilled me even then. "You'll regret this." 2 days later, a letter arrived by courier. It was from her lawyer. The message was absurd yet threatening. I was ordered to change my son's name within 24 hours or face legal consequences. I reread the words again and again, unable to believe my sister would go this far. That night, we gathered the family at my mother's house in Siena. The living room, once filled with childhood laughter, now felt cold and heavy. Sofia sat on the couch in a bright red coat, arms crossed like a defiant child. "You can't own a name," Lorenzo said gently. "The law doesn't work that way." Sofia's eyes darted from him to me. "You don't understand. Gabriel is mine. I dreamed of that name since I was 10. Every time I saw Gabriel Byrne on screen, I promised myself, my son will be Gabriel. And you took that from me." I looked at her, at the woman who once held me when I was sick, who braided my hair before school. Now her voice shook with envy and something darker, almost desperation. "Sofia," I whispered, "this isn't about a name. This is about something you've lost, but it's not my fault." Her jaw tightened. "If you don't change it, you'll lose more than you think." That was the moment Lorenzo's patience ended. He stood and pointed toward the door. "Enough. Leave." Sofia rose slowly, her expression empty, almost serene. Fine, she said, turning toward the hallway. But remember this night. You've chosen the name over me. The door closed behind her with a final echoing click. For a long while no one spoke. My mother wiped her eyes, whispering, "She'll calm down." But I knew she wouldn't. I could feel it, the air itself had shifted. What began as jealousy had turned into something unrecognizable, something dangerous. That night I couldn't sleep. I stood by Gabriel's crib listening to his tiny breaths, wondering how a name, a simple, beautiful name, could already carry the weight of a curse. The day Gabriel was born, Florence was drenched in light, that kind of soft, trembling light that makes even the oldest stones along the Arno look new. I remember gripping Lorenzo's hand, the faint scent of antiseptic in the air, the cry of my baby breaking through the stillness of the delivery room. It was the sound of life beginning. I thought it was the happiest day of my existence. But happiness, I would learn, can be fragile. And sometimes madness waits just beyond the door. 2 hours after delivery, while I lay in bed, exhausted and floating between joy and pain, the door to my hospital room creaked open. I thought it was a nurse. Instead, it was Sofia, standing there with a bouquet of lilies and a plush teddy bear. Her lipstick was smudged, her smile strangely stiff. "Luciano has arrived," she said softly. Lorenzo and I exchanged a look. "What do you mean?" he asked. She stepped closer, her eyes glinting. "My son, Luciano. He's coming. I'm pregnant, Bella. So you see, we're even now. You took the name Gabriel and I found my own way." I tried to smile, tried to be kind, but there was something unnatural in her tone, rehearsed, detached. Her hands were shaking as she placed the teddy bear on my bedside table. "For him," she whispered. "For both of them." Lorenzo gently guided her toward the door. "Sofia, this isn't the time. Bella needs to rest." Her expression changed instantly. "Of course. I understand." But as she turned away, her eyes caught mine, full of something that wasn't grief anymore. It was fixation. That night, as I held Gabriel for the first time, I noticed something odd on his hospital bracelet. His name, Gabriel Moretti, had been replaced. The small printed tag now read Luciano Moretti. My blood turned to ice. Lorenzo rushed to the nurse's station, demanding an explanation. After a tense exchange, one of the staff admitted that a relative had visited the records desk earlier, claiming there'd been a family decision to change the baby's name. They showed us the signature. It was Sofia's. It took hours to correct the records, but the damage was already done. I couldn't stop trembling. Every time I looked at my son, I saw the shadow of her obsession creeping in, like a stain on something pure. 2 weeks later, we learned that Sofia had filed a formal request with the civil registry to reserve the name Gabriel for her own child. The irony was unbearable. She wasn't even pregnant. Least not yet. Then came July, blistering heat, days when even the marble walls of our apartment seemed to sweat. One morning, as I was nursing Gabriel, my brother Marco called, his voice shaking. "Bella," he said. "Sofia's in the hospital." My heart stopped. What happened? She collapsed on the courthouse steps. They said she was trying to file something about the baby's name. She lost the pregnancy. I couldn't process it. Pregnancy. He paused. "She was pregnant, Bella. She said she conceived right after your delivery. But the doctors think it was induced stress, dehydration, exhaustion." That afternoon my phone rang again. It was Sofia. Her voice came through the speaker, cracked and wild. "You killed him," she hissed. "You killed my son. Sofia, please. You took the name and now he's dead. Gabriel was supposed to be mine. You cursed him." I sat frozen, unable to speak. Lorenzo reached for the phone, but I ended the call. The silence afterward was unbearable. For days I couldn't sleep. I replayed her words over and over, wondering how love between sisters could twist into something this poisonous. Every message she sent after that grew darker, accusations that I'd stolen her destiny, that God himself would punish me. One night she sent a photo of a candlelit shrine, a baby's blanket, a cross, a picture of actor Gabriel Byrne. The caption read, "For my son stolen by betrayal." Lorenzo wanted to report her, but I stopped him. I kept telling myself she was grieving, unstable, lost in her own illusions. Maybe with time she'd heal. But deep down I already knew the truth. This wasn't grief anymore. It was obsession. An obsession, once it takes root, does not rest, it grows. 3 months passed. Gabriel was growing fast, soft curls, warm laughter, a little mole near his ear that I used to kiss every night before sleep. For a while, I let myself believe Sofia had disappeared from our lives. Her calls stopped. Her posts vanished. Her silence felt almost like peace. But peace, I learned, can be a disguise. It began one gray Tuesday morning. I was preparing Gabriel's bottle when the doorbell rang. 2 strangers stood outside. A man and a woman wearing dark coats and carrying clipboards. They introduced themselves as officials from the Servizio Sociale di Firenze, the Italian Child Protection Agency. "We've received a report," the woman said, "about possible neglect and domestic violence in this household." My hands went cold. "What?" Lorenzo came to the door, confused. This must be a mistake. They were polite, almost kind, but relentless. They asked to see Gabriel. They inspected the apartment. Every room, every shelf, every cupboard. I could feel their eyes scanning for proof of something that didn't exist. When they left, they handed me a notice. The report accused us of creating an unsafe emotional environment for our son, citing my alleged postpartum depression and Lorenzo's violent past. It even referenced a disciplinary case against my father, Giovanni, from years ago, a rumor that had destroyed his teaching career, though he was later proven innocent. I felt dizzy. How could anyone know these details? That night, Lorenzo searched online and found a local Facebook group called Protecting Little Gabriel. There, Sofia had been posting for weeks, twisting our lives into a grotesque story. She called herself a concerned aunt, claiming she'd witnessed abuse, that Gabriel was in danger and needed to be saved. Hundreds of strangers were commenting, praising her bravery, calling her an angel. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. It was like my throat had locked. 2 days later, Servizio Sociale came again, this time with an order. They said the court had approved temporary custody transfer for the safety of the child while they investigated. I remember the sound of Gabriel crying as they took him from my arms, a sound that tore through me like glass. Sofia was waiting outside. She had a baby car seat already buckled in her car. When she saw me at the window, she smiled, not kindly but triumphantly, and mouthed, "He's safe now." The world went dark after that. I barely remember the following weeks. The sterile smell of the courthouse, the endless paperwork, the hollow look on Lorenzo's face. I tried to hold on to faith, but every day, I saw new posts of Sofia cradling my son, calling him my little Gabriel. She even posted photos of his nursery, an immaculate room filled with expensive toys, pale blue walls, and framed pictures of Gabriel Byrne staring down like a patron saint. Her captions read, "Finally, he's home." Each photo felt like a knife. My friend Clara, a photographer, came to visit one evening. She brought a casserole and gentle eyes. "Bella," she said carefully, "you have to stay calm. Sofia is unstable, but you'll get him back." I nodded, too tired to reply. A few days later, I overheard Lorenzo on the phone. His voice was low, tense. When he hung up, he looked at me as though he didn't know how to tell me something. "It was Clara," he said finally. "She said Sofia contacted her. Asked questions about us, about my past, your sleep patterns, your temper. She didn't realize she was giving her information." I sank into a chair. "So she helped her." "She didn't mean to," he said, his voice breaking. "But yes, Sofia knew everything." That night I couldn't even cry. I felt emptied, like my heart had gone quiet just to survive. One afternoon, I drove past Sofia's house. From the street, I could see her balcony, sunlight spilling across a line of baby clothes. Gabriel's tiny blue hat hung there, swaying in the wind. I wanted to scream his name, but I didn't. I sat in the car until my vision blurred, whispering to myself, "He knows me. He remembers my voice." Weeks passed, filled with interrogations, psychological evaluations, and meetings with lawyers. Sofia portrayed herself as a savior, a woman rescuing her nephew from a broken mother. She submitted falsified messages, photos of me crying in the car, screenshots taken out of context. Then one night an envelope slid under our door. Inside was a USB drive. I didn't know who sent it. When Lorenzo plugged it in, there was a video Sofia recorded by her own webcam talking to someone unseen. I told them she's unstable, she said, her voice calm, almost cheerful. They believed me. All I had to do was plant the idea. Once the system takes a child, it's almost impossible for them to undo it. Gabriel will stay with me. He's mine now. Lorenzo stared at the screen, silent. That video became our first real weapon. Our lawyer filed for immediate review, demanding the court re-examine the case. But bureaucracy moved slowly, painfully, like dragging through mud. Every night I pumped milk for a baby who wasn't there, labeling each bottle with the date. A ritual that hurt and healed at the same time. Clara came again, tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry, Bella. I didn't know she was using me. Forgave her, or at least I wanted to. It wasn't just Sofia's cruelty that destroyed things. It was the way she made good people complicit without realizing it. The night before the hearing, I sat by the window of our Florence apartment, staring at the Arno. Its water glimmered under the streetlights, quiet and indifferent. I thought about how rivers never stop. They carry everything, the beauty and the debris alike. I whispered to myself, hold on, Bella. Just hold on. Because I knew if I broke now, Sofia would win. And if she won, I might never see my son again. The night of the fire began like any other. Quiet, heavy, with that strange stillness that settles over Florence when rain threatens but never comes. Lorenzo had gone to Siena to meet our lawyer. I stayed behind, sorting through documents, piecing together fragments of truth from months of chaos. It was almost midnight when the smell reached me, faint at first, then sharp, metallic, unmistakable. Smoke. I ran downstairs barefoot. Flames licked the edges of the photography studio I had rented below our apartment, the one where I had stored every picture, every file, every letter related to Sofia's lies. The air was thick and hot. I screamed for help as neighbors poured into the street, their shouts mixing with the shrill cry of sirens. By the time firefighters arrived, the building was half engulfed. My studio, my proof, was gone. Someone had poured gasoline near the back door. The police said it looked deliberate. But they didn't have a suspect, not officially. Unofficially, I knew. 2 days later, a message arrived in my inbox. No subject line, just a link. When I clicked it, a video appeared, Sofia, standing in front of her mirror, holding a candle. It's poetic, isn't it? She said softly, her reflection trembling in the light. Fire cleans everything. Lies, mistakes, guilt. Now you can't prove anything. Then she smiled. Maybe it's time you start over, Bella. My fingers trembled. I forwarded the video to Lorenzo and our lawyer. But when they opened it, the file had disappeared. Corrupted. Sofia had always been 2 steps ahead, twisting everything into something unrecognizable. A week later, she appeared on social media again. Calm, composed, radiant. She claimed I had set fire to my own studio to erase evidence of abuse. She even posted a doctored audio recording. My voice distorted, shouting something that sounded like, "I'll burn it all down before you take him." People believed her. They shared, commented, condemned. The Servizio Sociale reopened the case. The pressure crushed me. But this time, something inside me refused to break. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe defiance. Or maybe just the instinct of a mother who had nothing left to lose. I began to fight back. Not with tears, but with clarity. Lorenzo and I hired a private digital forensics expert from Milan. He analyzed every file, every timestamp, every shadow in the fake video and recording. And then finally he found it. A fragment of unedited sound hidden deep inside the corrupted USB weed, received months earlier. Sofia's voice. Laughing. She was rehearsing lines for a video. No, she said to someone off camera. Make it sound angrier. Like she's threatening me. The technician enhanced the audio. Clear as day, her voice followed. Once the system takes a child, it's almost impossible to undo it. The same line she had once said in her webcam confession. We now had 2 recordings, both different, both damning. But the question remained. Who sent them to me? Late one night I got the answer. A message came from an anonymous email. She burned the wrong copy. Keep digging. Attached was a short video clip from a security camera. Sofia near the studio, holding a lighter, her face half hidden by a scarf. That was enough. Our lawyer presented everything to the prosecutor in Siena. Within weeks, Sofia was summoned for questioning. Her perfect facade began to crumble. Her lawyer tried to argue mental distress, claiming she was traumatized by family conflict. But truth, once found, has its own gravity. Still, I didn't celebrate. I couldn't, because Gabriel was still with foster care. The system moves slowly even when it's wrong. One afternoon, Clara came by with something wrapped in a velvet pouch. "You should have this," she said. Inside was a memory card. She'd found it months ago while sorting her camera files. "It was from the day Gabriel was born," she whispered. When I opened the footage, I saw Sofia standing behind me in the hospital corridor, staring through the nursery glass. Her lips moved barely, but the camera's microphone caught it. "One day he'll be mine." It wasn't rage I felt, it was revelation. This wasn't sudden madness. It had been planned. Every step, every lie, every manipulation, long before I even understood what she wanted. That night, I stood on our balcony overlooking the Arno, wind carrying the faint scent of smoke still lingering from the fire. The city lights shimmered like restless ghosts below. For the first time, I didn't feel fear. I felt focus. Sofia had taken my peace, my name, my child. But she had left me one thing she couldn't destroy: truth. And now I was going to use it. The next morning, I printed the transcripts, burned new copies of the audio, and sealed everything in an envelope marked for the court and the press. If justice was slow, then exposure would be faster. For months, Sofia had built her empire of lies under the light of sympathy. It was time the light turned against her. And as I sent that envelope out, to the prosecutor, the newspaper, and the Child Welfare Board, I whispered to myself, "You wanted a fire, Sofia. Here it is." But this time it burns for the truth. The courtroom in Siena smelled of varnish and tension. That heavy blend of fear and formality that lingers when truth is about to change everything. The air was cold even though it was spring. I sat at the plaintiff's table beside Lorenzo, my hands gripping the edge so tightly that the wood left red marks on my palms. Across from us, Sofia looked immaculate, white blouse, pearls, her hair tied in a soft knot. She smiled faintly, as if she still believed she could win. For months, she had lived in the echo chamber of her own lies. But today the walls were closing in. The judge entered, a woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She didn't like drama. That was clear from the way she looked at everyone, impatient, clinical, waiting for facts, not emotions. Our lawyer began with the recordings, both versions. The first was Sofia's edited video, the one she had posted online to prove I was dangerous. Then he played the uncut version, the one our forensic expert recovered. The courtroom went silent when Sofia's real voice filled the room, laughing as she rehearsed the lines, instructing someone to make Bella sound crazy. The judge's expression didn't change, but she leaned slightly forward. Then came the security footage. Sofia near the studio on the night of the fire, lighter in hand. Her defense tried to claim it was coincidence, that she was passing by. But when the prosecutor played the hospital clip Clara had found, Sofia whispering, "One day, he'll be mine," the room seemed to exhale in unison. I didn't look at her. I couldn't. When it was her turn to speak, Sofia stood up. Her hands trembled just enough to show the cracks in her confidence. "I didn't mean harm," she said, her voice small. "I just wanted to protect Gabriel. I thought Bella was unstable." "Then why forge evidence?" the judge asked. Sofia hesitated. For the first time she looked lost, like a child caught in her own story. "Because," she said finally, "I wanted to matter. He wasn't my son, but I wanted him to be. I wanted to fix something broken in me." Her voice cracked on that last word. I felt something unexpected. Not triumph, but sorrow. The kind you feel when a storm ends and you see how much it destroyed. The judge ordered a recess. When we reconvened, the verdict came swiftly. Sofia was found guilty of falsifying evidence, defamation, and obstruction of justice. The Servizio Sociale was instructed to restore Gabriel's custody to me, effective immediately. I should have felt victorious. Everyone said I'd won. The court applauded my strength. Journalists called it a triumph of truth over manipulation. But when I stepped outside the courthouse, cameras flashing, reporters shouting, I didn't feel like a winner. I felt hollow. Because justice doesn't restore what's lost. It only stops the bleeding. Lorenzo squeezed my hand. "We did it," he whispered. I nodded, though my eyes were on the horizon, the same Tuscan hills where my nightmare had begun. Somewhere, Gabriel was still too young to understand what any of this meant. One day, he would ask why his baby photos disappeared, why his aunt called herself his mother, and I would have to find a way to explain without poisoning his heart. Sofia was let out in handcuffs, her face pale, her eyes fixed on me. For a second something flickered there, regret maybe, or realization that she'd destroyed herself chasing a love that was never hers to claim. As she passed, she whispered something I almost didn't hear. "He smiled because of you. Always because of you." Then she was gone. The sun outside was blinding. Reporters swarmed, but their words dissolved into background noise. I lifted my face to the light, warm, real, unfiltered, and for the first time in months I let myself breathe. Justice had spoken, but peace I knew would take longer. Gabriel came home on a gray morning, when the sky above Florence was the color of unpolished silver. The social worker handed him back to me like a fragile relic, wrapped in a blue blanket I didn't recognize. He smelled different, like someone else's detergent, someone else's rhythm. When I said his name, he blinked as if searching for a memory that had faded too soon. I held him against my chest, and for a moment the world stood still. The past 5 months, the trials, the nights of silence, the endless fear, folded into that single heartbeat. He didn't cry. He just rested his head against my shoulder, and I felt the tiny warmth of his breath on my skin. It was both salvation and heartbreak. At home, everything was the same but nothing was familiar. His crib stood waiting, dusted and perfectly arranged, yet when I tried to lay him down, he whimpered, eyes wide, unsure. The social worker told me gently, "It will take time. Babies remember more than we think." I nodded, pretending to be strong, though my hands trembled as I stroked his hair. Lorenzo was a shadow of himself. The online campaign Sofia started, the posts calling him an abusive father, had cost him his job. The company couldn't handle the scandal, no matter how false it was. He spent weeks sending resumes, rewriting his CV, but few called back. I'd find him staring out the window late at night, the glow of the Arno reflecting on his face, whispering, "I just wanted to protect our family." And then there was my father, Giovanni. The man who once filled classrooms with laughter and history lessons now sat in silence most days. The old rumors Sofia resurrected, that he had inappropriate behavior with students, resurfaced, spreading online like a disease. Though he'd been cleared years ago, the damage was done. He refused to leave the house, saying quietly, "A man's name once stained never shines the same." I tried to hold everyone together, my child, my husband, my father, but some days it felt like carrying a cathedral on my back. Still I kept going. I cooked. I cleaned. I sang to Gabriel even when my throat was sore from crying. Slowly, his smile began to return. He'd reach for me, babble, laugh when I kissed his toes. Those moments were my medicine. But peace was fragile. Sofia's presence lingered like smoke that refused to clear. From the psychiatric clinic she sent letters, dozens of them. Some were apologies written in trembling handwriting. "I miss you. I'm sorry." Others were terrifying. "You can't keep him from me forever." I never replied, but I read them all, trying to understand what part of her still believed this was love. One evening, a message appeared on my business page. A fake account, but I recognized her tone immediately. "Gabriel will come back to me. He knows who his real mother is." I reported it, blocked it, deleted it, yet the fear stayed. Lorenzo suggested we move, start over somewhere else. But I couldn't. This city held too many memories, both beautiful and broken. I needed to reclaim it, not run from it. So I reopened my design studio, even with the walls still scarred by smoke. I painted over the burns myself, each brushstroke a small act of defiance. Clients returned slowly, drawn by pity or respect. I couldn't tell which. But it was enough. Some nights, when the wind carried the faint echo of church bells, I'd stand by Gabriel's crib and watch him sleep. His tiny chest rose and fell in rhythm with mine. I realized healing wasn't a sudden sunrise. It was the quiet persistence of dawn after the longest night. And though Sofia's shadow still followed us, I promised myself this. She could haunt my memories, but she would never touch my son's future again. In the quiet that followed the storm, I learned 5 truths that reshaped everything I knew about love and survival. First, truth takes time. Lies can roar for months, but truth moves like water through stone. Slow, patient, inevitable. Second, love is an action, not a feeling. It's the sleepless nights, the endless courage to protect what's fragile. Third, family is a choice. Blood means nothing without loyalty. Fourth, never underestimate obsession. It wears the mask of love until it burns everything it touches. And fifth, healing is not forgetting. It's learning to live with the scars, knowing they no longer define you. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe. Not for me, but for every woman who had to rebuild her life from the ashes of someone else's obsession. Thank you for listening.